Hello, CELTA friends. I'm Fergus, and if you're new to this channel, I'm a guy who talks about the CELTA. I give you tips on how to score that not entirely elusive Pass A. Before we jump into another set of Cambridge assessment criteria related content, let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on all the advice on the interwebs swirling around this topic? Do you subscribe to those who say it's statistically so unlikely that you shouldn't even try? Or are you of the mindset that, hey, it's a goal to be achieved, so let's watch some of Fergus's videos and try to get me a Pass A? Okay, on with the next set of 5 tips to get a Pass A grade in your CELTA. In the last video, I talked about awareness of your learners, their backgrounds, rapport building, the dreaded language analysis, and sensitivity training, aka error correction. If you haven't seen it already, I would encourage you to go and check it out. It's a doozy. I also did, of course, talk about obliterating that subscribe button. So, if you didn't obliterate it in the last video, how about simply smashing it in this one? So by now, you've probably heard about the communicative approach. And in this video, we're going to look at the criteria which speak directly to this underpinning of the whole CELTA enterprise. Context is key. It needs to appear right from the outset of your lesson plan, in your aim, and the criteria want to see you establishing a clear context. After all, think about it. If I tell you all about steering wheels, gears, pedals, etc., it might give you some knowledge about cars, but if you want to drive, you need to get into the car itself, get into the context, drive it around a car park, and take it out on the open road. The same is true of language. Learners don't need to know a bunch of theoretical knowledge. They need to be given clear context in order to relate the language to their own lives. An example of an aim that includes a context would be something like, by the end of the lesson, students will have practiced the present perfect in the context of tourism. For example, have you ever been to Ireland? Yes, I've been many times and it's wonderful. As opposed to the present perfect is subject plus have or has plus the past participle. Now you do it. Dull and unmemorable. So what do the criteria say about this? Well, 2C wants to see you providing clear context and a communicative focus for language. In particular, you need to provide a context for language by means of a text, which can be reading or listening, by the way, a situation or task using visual aids and realia as appropriate. You need to ensure there is a clear link between the context, tourism, and the target language, present perfect, i.e., the context allows for the target language to be naturally used, which leads on to the next criteria, which says that ensure that the context provides learners with sufficient opportunity for communicative practice. I've previously mentioned that we must provide accurate models of language, and this is something that especially worries non-native fledgling teachers. But fear not. The requirement is that you must be accurate primarily with your target language. We all make slips. Even us natives doesn't do it right all the time. Yet the criteria does say at 2D, provide accurate and appropriate models of oral and written language in the classroom. Choose natural examples of language from context. Ensure new language models are natural and accurate when drilling. Drilling pronunciation, that is. Be careful about over-accentuating difficult parts of the target language. Highlight the target language clearly. Your whiteboard and colored pens are great for this. And here's the part about accuracy of your target language in particular. The criteria asks you to ensure language used on the board and on worksheets is correct in terms of spelling and pronunciation. Next, the criteria look to see you focusing on language items in the classroom by clarifying relevant aspects of meaning and form, including phonology, to an appropriate degree of depth. Clarify the meaning of language in language-based lessons. Language-based lessons, by the way, refers to grammar, lexis or vocabulary, and functional language, by using one of the ways you have learned on the course. For example, concept questions, timelines, or learner-centered tasks. Clarify the form of the language in language-based lessons, again, by using one of the ways you have learned on the course yet again. So we're going to look to see examples of such things as using the board or a learner-centered task. In the online context, that could be sharing your screen. The criteria also look to see you clarifying the pronunciation of the language in the language-based lessons in one of the ways that you've learned on the course again. So for example, it might be finger highlighting for contractions. I have, I've. And you could highlight that on the board or on a screen share again. Next, I want to talk about register for our fourth tip for today, but I'll get to that in just 1 minute. If you're preparing for CELTA and would like to put yourself ahead of the game, or if indeed you're currently taking CELTA, then if you would like to arrange a consultation, please go ahead and email me on fergustrainer@gmail.com. I have also recently developed courses for teaching online and how to use online tools to enhance your teaching experience. Go ahead and leave a comment or send me an email and let's talk. Okay, on to the next criteria. And Cambridge asks trainees to show awareness of differences in register. Well, in order to do this, it would be useful to have a clear idea what register is. So I went over to the British Council Teaching English website, and here is what they have to say. Register often refers to the degree of formality of language, but in a more general sense, it means the language used by a group of people who share similar work or interest, such as doctors or lawyers. So an example could be for formal and informal registers. Would you mind passing the salt is appropriate for a formal situation with strangers, whereas pass me the salt would be used for a situation where friends are talking or possibly when being rude. In the classroom, although register is a complex area, the most common aspect looked at in language learning is the degree of formality. Teachers often divide functional language into 3 working categories: formal, neutral, and informal. Okay, so with this British Council overview in mind, the criteria also looks to see trainees showing awareness of formal, neutral, and informal language. So you also need to show awareness of how language changes according to the different contexts in which it is used. Next, the criteria ask trainees to provide appropriate practice of language items, to provide as much practice in context, again, as possible. And you need to also ensure the practice is appropriate to the target language and to stage practice activities logically. In short, this means, for example, to do controlled practice and then to do freer practice, because controlled practice focuses on accuracy, getting it just right, and then freer practice is fluency, letting it flow. I want to focus in on this aspect that says to ensure the practice is appropriate to the target language. Because say, for example, you clarify the meaning, form, and phonology of the present perfect, yet you only show the affirmative sentence to clarify. So, I have been to Ireland, affirmative. Then in your practice, students are required to use the negative form and the question forms. Well, we could say that your practice isn't appropriate since you haven't clarified what you're asking the students to practice. Basically, if it's in the practice, then you should make sure that you have taught the students what they need to know in order to be able to do the task. In this specific Ireland example that I just gave you, you would have needed to clarify the negative and the question forms prior to starting the practice stage. And this brings us on to the next assessment topic and the final tip for this video, and that is topic 3, language skills, reading, listening, speaking, and writing. The first criteria in this topic deal with receptive skills, namely reading and listening. And it says that trainees need to help learners to understand reading and listening text. To do this, Cambridge says that you need to follow teaching procedures you have learned on the course. For a receptive skills-based lesson, ensure an appropriate focus on developing receptive skills and sub-skills. If you haven't done so already, you can check out my videos from a few years ago on teaching reading and listening for more on how to teach these receptive skills. Okay, so another 5 tips on how to get a pass A on your CELTA are in the bag. Let me know in the comments what you thought about today's 5 tips. What are your thoughts on teaching language as well as receptive skills? As always, a big thank you to you, dear viewer. Your support, questions, and even your doubts means so much to me. Please keep on sharing and subscribing to my channel. And remember, people of CELTA, keep working, keep planning, and stay dedicated so that whether it be today or one day, you'll become that A-grade teacher of your dreams. Thanks for watching, and until we meet again, take care.